and all the other women in Washington, and slowly got into the women's problems.
All right. Tell the process after they're processed and their life after they go from step to step to step.
Yes, what they do is the processing after they're purchased by the high bidder, whatever, or special ordered. They enter the palace, let's say Saudi Arabia, and in the palace, all of their clothes are taken off. And they're given new clothes, very high-end clothes. They are told never to use their Christian name again, and they're given an Arabic name. A doctor comes in and does a complete health checkup on them to find out whether or not they have a disease, etc., etc. Then a work slave, usually from Pakistan or India or whatever, comes in and is assigned to that child. The child can never touch their body. Everything is done for their body. And the child is giving the best of everything because the prince wants high product. I met in one of these cocktail dinner parties an architect who was from an oligarchic Ottoman family. He has built approximately 40 of these palaces in Saudi Arabia. And I asked him about how he got all of the commissions, and he said, well, the United States architects really don't know about the slave quarters and the concubine quarters. I do. I was from the Ottoman Empire. I know how to build these things. This is how he got there.
Then after the children are used for a while, what's the next step?
Well, the children are divided up. They are used as sex slaves. That would be the little boys and girls. Some of them are used for dignitaries to come into town at parties. It's just an extension of a party. Others are used as reproductive slaves. One girl just escaped from Saudi Arabia, and she only saw her prince once a week, every Saturday for 2 hours. Otherwise, she just languished, waiting for the prince. She met an English fellow somehow and escaped.
That's like a miracle, though, isn't it?
It's more than a miracle because everything in that palace is owned by the prince. That includes human beings. He can do anything he wants to anything in that palace, any human being. He can kill them at will. If they escape outside, the police will bring them back to him because they don't have passports, they don't have any identification, and they just know at this time their own Arabic name, their own first Arabic name.
As they get older, though, then what happens?
In StateDepartment.com, there is a picture of a room where one of the older sex slaves that had been bought and sold 2, 3, 4 times, we don't know, was kept. They treat them like used cars. They just get further and further down and cheaper and cheaper.
I see. Okay. And then?
Finally, at the end, they get dumped in Rubicali, which is known as the empty quarter. It's part of the desert.
And they're left there to die?
Well, depends. The Saud family have dumped people out of helicopters, U.S.-made helicopters, in Rubicali. I don't actually know how they get them out there. That's sort of a secret.
But I don't think they live too long after that, do they?
No, they can't, because that's one of the most inhospitable places on earth. But I must say something. The princess, King Abdullah's wife, just expounded on all of these things. And with King Abdullah, he never wanted to traipse in London or the United States. He stayed in Morocco. He would go to Morocco for his fun. And he was heterosexual, and would just have his fun with the girls in Morocco all his life. Now he's an older man. He's about 87 now, and doesn't have the fervor that he once had. Interviewing his wife, I was inclined to respect him very, very much, and the difficulties of being a potentate of an absolute powered kingdom.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that you think you haven't included in this conversation?
Yes, another.
It's how is it rated according to the drugs, the guns?
Oh yes, in the trade, you have the drugs, which are number one. You have now the sex trade, which has usurped second position from the arms trade. So you have the drugs, the sex, and the arms.
So it moved up a notch, huh?
Yes, but we must realize here, we're not talking about very many children, the high-end children. These are generally blonde, blue-eyed children that are taken over to Saudi Arabia. We're not talking about that many. Other children end up in various other places.
Yeah, this is just the top end you're speaking about.
That's correct.
And the other ones are just like the general trade, right?
Yes.
It goes on all the time.
I was at a party in Belgravia in London, and the gentleman, I asked this gentleman if I could wash my hands, and he told me the bathroom was through the kitchen. I went through the kitchen. I saw these two young girls in the kitchen. I said, "Who are you?" They said, "We're from California. We're on our way to Saudi Arabia for a movie. They're giving us $5,000 a week for a movie. Isn't that great?" At that time, he came in. He said, "What are you talking to these girls for?" I said, "Well, I just saw them there." He said, "Don't talk to them. Come back in." On the way in, I said, "Well, who are these two girls?" He said, "Well, they're just whores we're bringing in to Saudi Arabia." That shocked me.
Wow. How old were they about?
These girls, I'd say, were anywhere from 14 to 16.
And the other girls that you're talking about, and young men, what is that age range?
The younger the better, because they're more pliable. We've seen this in the media of these girls and boys that will go with the kidnappers and actually live with them, where they can escape, and they don't. They get conditioned quite easily.
Yeah. So that's it after that, right?
Yes, it's just a sluice. And they go into this sluice, and they end up the rest of their lives with families in the United States in despair for life.
Wow. So there's anything else you want to say about your book?
Well, I think that people will like it when it comes out. It's
sounds intriguing to me.
Yes, especially the interview, the rather lengthy interview with the princess, King Abdullah's wife.
Yeah. Okay, so the poor girls and boys. Now you know the true story of what happens to these children, and it's really sad. And the picture that he brought is really upsetting, to say the least. So, Herb, I hope that you have people interested in your book, because I know you did a lot of work on it.
Yes, and I hope that they read statedepartment.com. That's one word, statedepartment.com. And you will see
That's
40
your
issues.
website, isn't it?
Yes, our website, and they will see an extension of what I'm talking about, with pictures that are rather graphic.
Oh, you didn't bring those.
No, they're on those sites.
Okay.
We just have so much room here.
Okay. All righty then. Well, I really am glad that you came and explained this, because most people don't understand the true story about what happens to these children. They always think they're taken by a stranger, but they're really, most of the time, into the slave trade. Is that right?
Yes. And we must not forget the families they leave behind that are emotional the rest of their lives. We've seen these families. We've seen the McCain family in England and what they've gone through.
But you're pretty sure that that's where she is. That
It's very, very logical. We have heard stories, and it's quite logical because Morocco is right across from El Grave, Portugal, where she was kidnapped, special order kidnapped.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So, I'm so glad that you came and explained everything. And is there anything else that you'd like to add before we're wrapping it up?
I think that, again, the parents of children should watch their children. Specifically, what I'm talking about, what they consider high-end children, or children that can be sold at an incredible price. We're talking $500,000 to $1 million. That's a terrific incentive.
Yeah. And it all goes by their looks, right?
Yes.
Blonde, blue eyes.
Also, there's one short thing, and that is the Saudi Arabian royal family has genetic defects, serious genetic defects, something like the pharaonics, the pharaohs. And what they're doing now is trying to intermate with these children we're talking about to bring in new DNA.
Oh. Okay.
This is what the princess mentioned.
Okay.
One of the things.
All right. I guess it's the end of the show now. And I really am happy that you came here and explained everything to the public.
Well, it's a pleasure being here, Marianne, and I have done this in the past, and I think it's a cause that has to be done.
Yes, I think it is very informative, and it should be told. The truth should be told. Thank you for listening. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, the last thing, that there was a congressional hearing by Congressman Dan Burton. Many of our friends were submitted to that hearing, and that's the last it's ever been heard of.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned a lot more about parentally abducted children. Not parentally abducted, abducted children. Thank you for listening.